Okay, welcome into the Transition Game podcast presented by Athlete to Boardroom. I'm Rodney Williams. I'm the founder of Athlete to Boardroom, and today we have a special guest. It's a friend, it's a brother, former teammate, professionally overseas. Everybody, welcome in Adam Presutti.
Rob, what's going on, brother? How are you, man?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Same old, my friend. Same old. How you doing?
Hey, listen, trying to hang in there, taking it day by day, but loving everything you're doing in your career. And I thought that was a perfect time to have that conversation and let other people know what's going on.
I appreciate you, man. I'm happy to be here, man, and thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So we're going to just jump in and we're going to talk about, a plethora of things today. We're going to walk down your career, walk down what you're doing now as a real estate appraiser. But if we can just start in that early childhood, who was Adam Presutti? Where did you grow up? Where did that love for basketball come from? Let's dive in right at the top.
So I grew up in Oakville, Ontario, man. It's not big, but not small city. I grew up, man, and started playing basketball. I think I was grade 5. My dad introduced me to it. It was always his favorite sport. He played 1 year university, so it wasn't like he was, immersed in it, but definitely introduced me at a young age to it, man. And I remember my first year I was playing power forward. I was grade 6, and just crazy how things, change, and, you realize you can't get a certain height. So, man, I think I started taking it competitively, like taking it seriously. And I knew that, it's just something I want to do for a career or, take it as far as I could was, I think grade 8, grade 9, and, definitely shaped who I am today.
Yeah. So Ontario, Canada, what was basketball like in Canada? I mean, I think about Canada. I've been there. I know hockey's really big, amongst other things, but what's the basketball scene like?
I used to hate hockey players, man, because they would steal all the attention. We really didn't get a lot of love as basketball players, especially like when we were coming up, our age group. Now you see what the Raptors have done in the last couple of years. They won the championship when Kawhi came, and you're seeing a ton of Canadians go over. Like it's way more common now for Canadians to go D1. You're seeing, like, you look at the national team, we got some
Absolutely
studs on that team, man. So, the game has definitely evolved to the point where it's like, a lot of people prefer basketball, or at least it's in the conversation. But yeah, like when I was growing up, it wasn't as, popular as it was, and that was a shame, because even as good of a team as we were, we were ranked number 2 in the country all year long. And, we just didn't get that exposure to anyone, really. We didn't get a lot of exposure to the States. We didn't get a lot of AAU tournaments, right? So the game is it's definitely changed a lot over the last 10 years.
No, I mean, the game is definitely growing. I remember the last time I was in Toronto and we caught up and we went to even see some of the leagues over there play, and it was just high intensity. So, yeah, I bet you can, as somebody who's from there, can see how things have grown over time. But when you were at that high school level, talk about your career then. Like, what was that like? I remember, when I was playing in high school and I had my experience being cut and all the things and trying to work the prep school system and all that. But what was it like in Canada for you?
Man, high school was like, out of all the years I played, I played 5 years. Sorry, I stayed back a year in my final year. 5 of the best years, because the second you go I'm not going to say university. The second you go professional, a lot of it becomes about the money. It's more of a business than it is, right? And of course, you still have the brotherhood. But in high school, man, you're just kids playing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
right, absolutely.
So we had, like, man, we were number 2 in the country. We made it to 3 provincial championships. That'd be like your state championships.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we got 2 silvers. We lost to Andrew Wiggins. He was a great, man, and he was grade 10 when we were older, and he was so athletic and so gifted at a young age that he could dominate the game. But no, we had a good time, man. A lot of the team, we ended up some played professional, a lot played university, and it was definitely competitive. Like there were still some guys going D1 at that time, but compared to where it is today, nowhere close to the same level of exposure.
Yeah, I mean, so what is it like, playing at that level, but then trying to get to college? I know it's probably different for each area. I think, when I was playing in high school, a lot was about, well, I'd say AAU, but AAU is totally different nowadays. But you needed AAU in a certain way. And even as a guard, I think, you know, that's different as well, right? Position, there's many guards out there. So how did you make yourself stand out? And especially, you know, again, in Canada and trying to figure out ways to get to the next level. What was that like?
High school, I was very like we had such a good team, man, and I just did what I do best. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big part of basketball is even at a young age, just knowing what you bring to a team and bringing it. For me, it was shooting. I could shoot the lights out, man, all the way through my career, and that's kind of how I niched myself. But transitioning to university, I always say like we were the number 2 team in the country, right? In high school, okay, and even that, with that being said, like you go to the next level, you're playing against guys 3, 4, 5 years older than you. I mean, Rod, it's the same thing when you're a rookie going to the pro level, like you're playing against men and guys that have been lifting weights and it's just a different speed and a different level of athleticism. So, I do remember like the jump being at first very difficult, but it's like anything, you adjust very quickly, man. And, as long as you got a good head on your shoulders, So.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all have that point of like transition to levels, right? Where you say, oh, I'm just playing against grown men now. And even at the high school level, that can hit you. I remember I was playing JV and this is when I finally started to get tall. I was probably about 6'5", ninth grade. And I was feeling good about myself. And then one of the guys who had just left varsity and went to college, he came back. His name was Braxton Byerson. And when I tell you, like, he was throwing me around like a wet towel, bro. And I was just like, there's nothing I can do.
Couldn't do nothing, bro.
There's always that shock. Same thing when I got to college. The Morris twins came to Drexel to pick up, and I was coming out of high school, ranked and all these things, and they scored like 11 straight points on me, bro. And I just like, there was like nothing I could do. So there was that point where I had to realize that the game was different. Did you have that in college?
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. Like, I won't say I wasn't necessarily like, I don't want to, threaten's not the right word, but I wasn't like when I transitioned into my first year at the actual university, I had a very successful rookie year and I ended up being rookie of the year in the country. But there were definitely some times, man, like, when you're playing against other teams and, you're playing a fifth-year point guard, bro, just small, low to the ground. Like I remember one guy, I still have nightmares. He picked me up full court. And I remember, bro, he'd look at his coach, he'd like, "Yo, coach, I got one. And that meant like he's about to cookie that from you, man. So, I definitely have some those memories of just older guys where it's like, damn, you have a long way to go as a player. But yeah, man,
you appreciate it, right? Like you appreciate it now because you had to go through something. And I think I try to tell, I still coach high school, and I try to tell a lot of these kids, like, you got to go get it. Like this entitlement stuff that we're in right now and thinking that we're better than we are, you're not there yet. And you're going to get to the next level and either get cut, get to the next level and get, destroyed. So you just really have to walk in those moments and also know that they're good for you.
Yeah.
And so, I loved hearing everybody's transition story because it doesn't matter how good you are. You find that point for you where it's like, all right, I better do something about this. I better get in the weight room. I better get stronger. For sure. So tell me about the college experience. You just talked about like rookie of the year and all those things. So if you had to like, give us some stories or, some things to highlight about your college career, what would that be?
Yeah, man. I mean, like the first year was really special for me, man, because like in high school, I was a shooting guard. I knew that if I was going to play professional, man, I needed to develop at the point guard. Like I had to have the combo ability. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, when I went to McMaster, they recruited me very, very hard. It was a school in Hamilton. And, I knew that I had to transition into that point guard role. And, there's a lot of learning, but, it's all, I always say this to like young recruits, like in high school, these schools, they want you to get there. So they're going to come to all your games. They're going to come to the dinners. They're going to treat you like gold when you're, in the recruit stage. And then when you get there, man, you're not leaving, you know what I mean? And they're, I think we've all had our fair share of getting yelled at and screamed at. Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
no, I was definitely, bro. I remember that first year for me was special because like coming from a new position, playing point guard, and for me to be able to win Rookie of the Year in the country was like, hey, I can do this. Like I worked hard for it, and I proved it kind of to myself that I can do this at a high level. One memory that sticks out for me was we were in the bronze medal game, and we needed to win this to get a bid to nationals. Okay, just the way that it worked out with the berths. And there's 15 seconds left, and it was kind of a scramble play, and just composed, man. I called the horn set, which we had a flare, man, the regular horns and
Mhm.
standard, and had a flare on the back end, and then I just penetrated to the right, and they collapsed, hit a guy, one of my boys, for a buzzer beater three,
Mhm.
and there we go, man. The rest is history, So
Yeah. Now, have you spent any time like going back at all? Trying to get back, over there.
big time, man. Big time. Like maybe not to McMaster, just the way, I played 4 years there and transferred my fifth, just the way it worked out. And I mean, you know how this goes,
Yeah,
right?
that could be, yeah.
So, but with my Ottawa, man, which I say saved my career that last year, like I still talk to these guys on a daily basis. We go back every year for alumni. We just got together for a buddy's bachelor party. So
Love
we're
that.
still in touch, man, and giving it back to the youth. Like it feels like a good family culture.
People ask me like sometimes they're like, what do you miss most about like being in the sport? And I'm like, yo, the locker room, like the
100.
brotherhood, the stories, like,
The
yeah,
Joe.
yeah, exactly. Like we're going to war. We understand that we got a common goal, but just being able to like be amongst brothers, I think is an underestimated thing. I mean, my college team, we still have a group chat till this day,
Yeah.
sending things and catching up with everybody. And that's just, I miss that after practice feel. Like we're just sitting around, legs probably hurt, but we're just sitting
Like
there
on the knees, just chilling, man.
just chilling, talking, and having a good time, for sure. So, you shared that experience. You talked about your accomplishments, but now we got to get to making money. Now we got to get to that next level of basketball, which a lot of people cannot make it. And so talk about, your professional journey and how you got there, just from even the start of being a rookie, agents, all those things. Let's break that down.
Yeah, so I was lucky because the school that I went to in university had 3 or 4 guys prior to me that had made the jump over, right? So it's not like the States, man. In Canada, it's not as common to like again becoming more common, but
Mhm.
only like the top, let's say the top players or the top teams, right? The seniors on those top teams are going to be able to make the jump to overseas. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So what happened was my one friend just posted my highlight tape, and his agent reached out to him and said, "Hey, does this kid have an agent? I really like his game. Like, can I sit down and talk to him?" Right. And there was a couple other agents as well, but you got to be very careful who you're filtering through, right? It's like any business. People are going to try to sewer you in, and you got to see the whole body of work and what they're capable of. Like at the end of the day, they're their best representation, sorry, of you, right? So yeah, anyway, so I decided to go with Nuno, and but to me it was the best decision, man. I love the guy to this day. We still
Great.
keep in touch.
Great. I
Yeah.
he hit me up. I remember my senior year right before I was coming out, and I had heard nothing but great things about him.
Yeah. Yeah. Great guy, man. Like, and just one of those guys that was in it for like, it's a business, but he was there in your corner, man, for, the thick and thin. Right. So yeah, anyway, so, signed with him, and he got me my first contract in Italy in a low division. And, I like to tell this story because it gives perspective to a lot of young,
Let's
players.
get perspective, because we got to break down some of these walls, man. I think people glamorize overseas, and I loved it. I love my experience, but
Yeah.
it's not everything that you think it is. And so I'm interested in talking about some of the norms, especially the rookie year, which, if you didn't go to a high major school, or you weren't, player of the year, top of your conference, you may have gone to a situation where you really had to get it out the mud. So I'm interested in breaking down this conversation for sure. Oh,
Yeah. So, but my first year, bro, third division Italy, very, very low level. And it was just get my foot in the door, show what I can do. And exactly like you said, Rod, it is not sunshine and daisies all the time, man. Like at the end of the day, we get to do what we love, and the memories, the traveling is very, very important and sticks with you for life. But I'll never forget my first year, 3 paychecks in, and 4 or 5 days go by, and I started messaging the GM, where's my check, right?
Where's my money?
Where's my money, man? Like, what's going on? Oh, we're a bit late. Okay, no worries. It's my first year, right? And 15 days go by, a month goes by, right? And again, I guarantee you every professional hooper has a story like this at some point, man. Everyone, man.
You remember, we'll get to when you and I played together in Sweden and stuff. But there was a time during that team where they were like a couple weeks late.
Yeah.
Like, I was starting to get real like, hey, I ain't practicing. Like, what we doing?
Yeah.
That organization was pretty solid, so we didn't have too many issues there. But I mean, I know guys that have horror stories about just, they ended up taking a situation just to get their foot in the door, but it might not have been the right one, and things like that happen. So, when you think about like your decision to choose Nuno and to find your agent, and when you're thinking about teams, what are some of the things that you take into account to make a decision?
So everyone, I think, is so concerned about money when you're coming out here. How much money am I worth? How much money are you going to make? And my advice to those guys is it's actually not about the money you're taking in your first year. So if an agent's telling you he can get you this, he can get you that, you more so should be concerned about what league is he going to get me in? Because you're building, it's just like you're starting a new job. You're building your resume in Europe. What you've done in college, what you've done in a different continent, for example, your body of work is Europe, right? And that's how they want to see, how have you competed against European, caliber of play, right? Yeah. So, a lot of the conversation with Nuno was like, listen, what's our plan? Where do you think I can fall? And I just being transparent with me, like, hey, where do you think I'm going to fall? Right. Let's be honest. Let's have an honest conversation. Some agents will say, listen, I can get you D1 Germany. Listen, if you didn't average, like you said, like 20 a game and, a high major school, you're not, making that jump right away to these top divisions. It's just not happening. Right. So like, and even me by that first year, like mid season, right after I didn't get a check and a half, the team folds. Just folded, right? And it said I had to find out at practice from my teammates. Like there was no message from the GM, and those are some of the stories that like you don't think could ever happen to you until you're going through it, man.
I mean, for sure. I think when I first came out, my team, we didn't have the success we wanted to, but individually I had a pretty good senior year. So in my mind, like I'm all conference, I'm about 15 and 9 and whatever. I'm doing well. So they're going to have to give me like $3,000, $4,000 a month, right? Like
easy.
Now, like what? Like, what are we talking about? And the first offer came in, it was $1,500. And I said, just to like, what was that? Like, they're like, no, like $1,500 a month. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. And, I started immediately like, I don't want this agent anymore. Like, I need to figure this out. I start calling other guys, like, is this normal? Because you hear all the stories when things were a little different back in the day. Like, Lev Silver was making money.
Yeah.
All those things that you hear. And so when I heard that, it was like a gut shock. And what the agents and the teams were saying were like, well, what have you proven? I'm like, I played D1 college basketball.
8 and 9, pretty damn good. Like,
right. And they're like, yeah, you haven't proven it over here yet. And so right. I think there's also these moments, where you also have to humble yourself in these process when you're selecting, because the right situation could be a little bit of money, right? Yeah. But if it puts you out on Front Street to be able to perform, that can easily double if you do what you're supposed to do. So I always find that interesting. So you talked about Italy first. What was the second team that you went to?
So super like lucky, and this is like a pure bet on yourself moment, man. And also, a little bit of luck. So, one of my friends or teammates was playing in Slovakia, and had a connection to the Canadian pipeline, we call it, right, to this team. And he hooked me up with a 10-day tryout, no money. And it was just like, hey, okay, listen, I'll give you a place to stay. I'll give you some food. Let's see what you're about, And, sometimes it takes that. You have to just bet on yourself and go. And I went there. I had a strong tryout. They ended up signing me for the rest of the season, not for a lot of money. They knew they could get me cheap, but I knew that, listen, at the end of the day, me having a top division Slovakia, that's a starting point for my resume, right?
Yeah.
And that's how things grew. The next year they re-signed me back, made some more money, and that's kind of how my career kind of started, right? But I always say that, if I would have let pride get in the way and just said, yeah, no, I'm going home, I'm done, I'm way better than this money, which, we all agree that you are, and we are, I probably would have quit or stopped playing. But you got to take that chance on yourself and just see what you got, man.
It's a crazy chance, man. I'm telling you, like I advise people just, where are you at in your life? Do you have kids? Do you have things, responsibilities? Because sometimes it just may not be worth it. But if you're somebody who's just starting out and you don't have things tying you down, then it is worth the sacrifice, right? Because that experience in itself is like 1 in a million. Like, yes, the salaries may be a little lower than you want, but there's things you can do, work some meals in your contract, get a car, other things like that. But being able to travel from country to country, like, I mean, I've seen things that some of my peers probably would never see. And so,
and what's that worth? What's that worth? You know
right,
what I mean? Like, what numerical value is that worth?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Absolutely. So any like funny horror stories when you think about overseas? Because I'm already, when we start talking about these things, I think about my first contract in Israel. It was $2,000. So they've given 2,000. And this is my first year, by the way. So it's 2,000. We'll give you 4 meals a day. We'll give you a car, apartment, and pay for whatever else. So, I scoffed at it, but then I realized, oh, that's actually a pretty good deal. Like, you should take that.
Fantastic. Who do I sign?
You're right. So you get to Israel. Then I realized I was like the only rookie in the league. It was a very much grown man league, second division. And after like 3 months, I ended up getting cut. And I'm like, why? I think I went there with a mindset of like, I'm this player, it's all given to me. But then there was that prove it moment of like, we don't need you. Like, did you have any of that in your career? And hopefully not, but like, were you ever experienced, or have you ever experienced like being against the wall, having to look over your shoulder or any of that stuff? Because that's a common thing in overseas basketball.
More times than I'd like, but you know what? And it made me so much better. I actually, it happened to me twice, actually. Right. The first time in Slovakia, and early on in the season where the coach just wasn't happy with my performance. I had a terrible shooting game, right? And for a shooter, I think I went like
2-3 games, and now that people start looking at you crazy
right away, man. Like, hey, like I haven't shot 40% for the last 15 years, but no, that doesn't matter. The first 3 games, right? So he gets me on the office and he starts slamming the table. I need to know that you can do the job or you're going home. I need to know. You got to wake up. And at that point, honestly, Rod, you see what you're worth, right?
Yeah.
And I was fortunate in both situations that happened. I'll tell the Sweden one after one, but in both situations that it happened, I came out gunning the next game. And that's why I always tell like the younger generation too. It's very, very important to be a good team player and be part of the team. Like that's super important. But when you're going overseas, man, you're getting evaluated based on your performance and if you're winning games. So if you're winning games,
not need you. Like
exactly.
That's part. Like Drexel might have needed me for a certain point. They do not need you over there. There's
a dime a dozen.
Come take your spot and they'll take it for less money.
Exactly. So when he told me that, and I was obviously, upset with it, but it came out the next game. I think I had like 18, but I just had a good game. I shot well, but energy was high. I was engaged, right? Sometimes you need that wake up call where, just to, hey, listen, it's either I do this now or I'm going to go home and all the work that I put in is to waste, right?
I'm telling you. So, I mean, I think that I always tell this story, even when I do like speaking engagements and stuff. Getting cut by that team my first year was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. You got fired. Getting fired, right, was the best thing that happened to me because it allowed me to like flip a switch to be professional. It allowed me to realize that I'm playing for another grown man. I'm playing against another grown man that has a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
This is not college. This is not going back to the dorm room. This is strictly business. And I think I've been able to take some of that into my now, corporate career. And even with Athlete to Boardroom to know, like, you got to do the work,
100%.
Absolutely. So let's see. We'll talk about this. So Adam and I played on the same team in Sweden, which is how we linked up. Talk about that experience with Umeå Basket. I mean, we were probably at the top of Sweden, so it was freezing. But we formed, friendships and bonds and have a lot of stories that we probably can't share all of them here. But talk about that experience with me.
Listen, man, I say this out of all my years professional, and we had every reason to hate that situation, right?
Absolutely.
Like we're in the top, we're about 2 hours south of the Arctic Circle. It's freezing cold. I'm talking like the sun in the wintertime is down. Like we would start practice at like 9 a.m. We'd finish by the time we're out of there at 12, let's say, and that sun is coming, it's on its way down already, It's very, very easy to get like depressed out there, or it's just the sunlight is there. It's not warm. And I remember the first time I signed to Sweden, I was like, I can't believe I'm going to Sweden. Like it was never a place, with no disrespect to it. It was never a place where I imagined my career going. Right. Yeah. And Rod, I say this all the time, like that out of all the years I played was my favorite and my best year, just for the brotherhood that we had.
Yeah.
Like even the locals, the Sweden guys, like
still
touch base with these guys. I'm not gonna say daily, but we talk a lot, right? And still
I just talked to Nathan today.
Yeah, man. I still keep in touch with Nate and Ego, all these guys, right? So the brotherhood that we formed that year, that was a special year for me, man. That was a special year, I think.
That team, bro, we should have been so much better. Injuries killed. I was a late arrival. I know I missed preseason. I think I came in September.
Yeah.
But again, like that group was just really good. I think we had even our games, we weren't even, far off. We just needed just a little boost.
Little boost, man. We were competitive, and I honestly think like if we were healthy, like we had some big injuries throughout the year. The tough part is we didn't have we weren't as deep as we would have liked to be, right? So, but in terms of like talent on that team, like that was a good team, man. That was a good
team. That was a good team. Those are the things that you should look for when you're going, overseas, and look forward to, right? Those bonds that you make after. I remember when my mom came up and she like made food for the team. It's just like all those.
Amazing, bro. That was amazing.
Man, so I really loved that situation. Had I known the pandemic, the pandemic was going to stop the season.
Yeah,
I would have cherished it a bit more. But you live and you learn. But those memories and those teammates that you form bonds with, they'll never die. And so now we've gone through that part where you finish the season. It stopped short because of COVID in Sweden, and so now we're all home. We're all isolated. We're all trying to figure things out. Vaccine, no vaccine, this, that, the third. What was that like for you? And at what point did the transition talk of, the whole real estate and appraisal thing come into play? Because I know you were still getting offers. You were still trying to search for an opportunity, but at the same time, it's like, hey, like I need to start thinking about, who it is I want to be. What was that point in time like?
You know what, man? Like it wasn't until like I had plans to keep going, I was fortunate enough because, my dad is the owner of Sharp Appraisal. He's been appraising for 25 years. Right. And so, I did take that as there was a break in time because of COVID where, hey, let me start developing in a different career, but always with the mindset that I'm still going to keep playing. I'm going to still keep going. Right. And, unfortunately, I had some offers, but I got into a car accident that year, and that's when I got into my I got rear-ended, and ended up having 2 back surgeries. So, unfortunately, that kind of cut my career short the way that it not and the way I wouldn't have liked. I recovered, tried to go back 1 year, and it was at that point, like, once you can't move the same way, you know what I mean? I'm in pain all the time. I'm slow. I'm in a league that I shouldn't be in, that I had to take because I just had missed the year because of the injury, right? And all these thoughts start coming in, like, hey, the love of the game is, it's just not as enjoyable anymore, and you gotta prioritize your body, and it's a real thought that some people don't factor in. Is like, you can only play this game for so long, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it's different for everybody, right? Yours may have been injuries. Mine was the pandemic and just the timing in my life. For others, it can be other things. But when you had to go through that, regardless of what the thought was or however the situation was, what did that feel like? I mean, I think as a conversation that I'd like to bring awareness to, I think we all emotionally hit a point where, not saying we break down, but we struggle with that idea of like, I wish I could have got this, or I wish I would have did that, or I'm not sure. For me, when I stopped and I was still trying to figure it out, I had some offers. I had regular job offers in the corporate, and I ended up taking that. But it just left me feeling, because I was healthy, like I can still jump, dunk, run, do all the things, and I decided to stop. And for me, there was just always, even if it was for a short moment, what if? And sometimes that left me depressed, sad, all those things. Did you ever have any of those rough patches, like knowing, like, man, like my back, this, that, the third, I'll never get to do this the way I wanted to do it? What was that spot like? Because I think we all go through it at some point, no matter what it is.
Rod, years later, like I'm what, 3-4 years playing, and I'm maybe not to the point as fully depressed, but I still go through that roller coaster of missing playing, the competitive level, the brotherhood. I remember that directly after I decided to give it up, I was training all the summer, but I just kept getting nerve pain down my leg every day. I would train, nerve pain down my leg. And it was such a roller coaster. I couldn't sleep at night because you put literally hours, days, years, into what you love to do, and all of a sudden it's getting taken away. And again, you said it best. Everyone has their story or their version of why they decide to leave the game. But if you're asking me if I still think about those things, yeah, absolutely, right. But the flip side of that, Rod, is that, like, there's also life after basketball. And I'm still adjusting to it. I'm not going to lie, but I've adjusted a lot better, 3 or 4 years disposed out of it than I did originally.
I mean, it's a process that will just continue on. Because I'm I think almost 4 or 5 years done and out of it, and I still like have that itch, or I might see somebody else's highlights and be like, I wish I was out there. I wish I could do that. And I'm still even dealing with it because I've started to play in like men's leagues around DC. I make a joke about it, but like there's that point where you get that question like, what you doing playing in here? Or
I know, man.
Somebody's team, or like, you must have been you that was a pro move. Somebody said to me the other day, that was a pro move. Wow, you should be playing somewhere. I'm like, oh, if you only
you had no idea, man.
I can and I could. I'm just not. And so I just think it's a process that, no matter how long you've been out of it, you'll still have some of that. But the good news is it doesn't last like the entire day, right? Yeah. You're able to refocus and recalibrate and get back to business. But,
it's a game of runs, I say. It's a game of runs. It's a game of waves. Like, the highs will be high, the lows will be low, right? But, you just got to mediate your thoughts and just, remember the reasons why you made that decision, right? I think is the best way to go about it, man. But, and you probably get this too, Rod. I mean, you were a beast. Like, people that don't know how good you were, like, Rod was probably one of the most athletic, fastest, like, smoothest, post players that I played with. And you probably get this to this day where it's like, I could still part of me today, like if I wanted to sign, I could still do it, right? I bet you think that way.
I still think that. I still think that. And you know what? Part of it is because what separates good players and pros versus regular Joes is your mind, right?
Yeah.
So when guys come back overseas, I still go out and play pickup because I feel like I got to prove it to myself. But I'm still able to compete at a high level, even though I'm not jumping as high as I used to or moving the way I used to laterally. My mind allows me to still pick my spots and, still make plays. And that part is like, and I think LeBron probably says this a lot too, right? Like his mind, as soon as his mind goes, he's like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
But as long as you can think the game, like you can play for a long time. I know you played against guys in Europe that were like 40 something years old. I mean, I have
big time
and giving buckets out. So
buckets, man, buckets.
Yeah, there's always that thought of like, I think I definitely could still do this, but I am grateful that the transition has been made. I'm grateful that it's been made I'm 30 now, been made in my 30s because, like you said, there's a lot of other pieces to life, right? Basketball is but a short window. And so now you've entered that as well. You're a real estate appraiser. So you mentioned your dad. There's a passion of his and a business of his, but just talk about your journey, getting into real estate, getting into appraising and what that looks like now.
For sure, man. So, at first, admittedly, like it was COVID, Dad, I need a job. I have no problem admitting it, right? And it's not like, like I just needed a job and I wanted to, experience, hey, is this something that I like or that I'm interested in, right? And I've always been passionate about real estate, always. I've always just had that mind for statistics and math and numbers and, where can I put my money and why does this area sell for higher than this one? It's just, 500 meters away. What's triggering buyers, right? Why would someone buy this property over this one, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was just an easier transition. I mean, my dad's been taking me on his appraisal since I was 6 years old. He's been in the industry for, 25 years, right? So for me to have access to one of the more respected minds in our region where we are in the Greater Toronto area, and I have access to that to pick his brain, to me, it was kind of a smooth and seamless transition on what my next step was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But he always said, like, listen, there is zero pressure for you to take over the family business. If this is not something that you do not enjoy, do not, don't go down this road, right? But test it out, see how you feel it. And as I started working with the company, I started, enjoying the business aspect of it. Yeah. And we'll talk definitely a bit more about it, but everything I learned about business, I learned from sports, everything,
Yep.
And just being a part of a team, right? Like leadership, how to be part of a team, how to add value, right? Like that's what business is. It's about relationship building. It's about leadership. And it's like, hey, what problem do you have? And how can I, solve that problem? Right.
Really?
And yeah. Right. So it's just, it was a smooth transition in that sense. And then at that point it was, okay, this is something I want to do. Now it's time to go back to the books. And I had to go through a lot of schooling, full disclosure, being an appraiser, it's essentially a master's degree. It's 8 to 10 courses, accounting, statistical analysis, financial computers, everything. Right.
Yeah.
And, it's just something that I knew I had to do to take the next step in my career. And, here I am just growing in my role and growing in this industry.
Talk about that. So what does like a day in the life of Adam look like when it comes to appraising? Are you traveling to different sites? Are you on the computer all day? What does that look like? Because I know you're doing business development as well.
Yeah. So I do have like the hybrid role, right? So a lot of my day is on the phone. I oversee a lot of the back end operations, but in regards to actually being an appraiser, like I'm up, Rod, I'm up 5 a.m. in the morning. And the only reason I can do that is, I have to, man. If I want to work out, go for my walk, do my meditation, there's only so many hours in a day. But, I attribute that to basketball, man. Like the fact that I can get up that early. We used to get up for 6 a.m. for workouts and for, practices. Easy. This is way easier. This is way easier to do, right? So
you get up money, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. So, a day for me, man, is I wake up early, I do my meditation, I do my workout. I do my breathing exercises just to get my, set the tone for my day.
Mhm.
And, I'll start with my emails. I'll start with any jobs that need to be assigned. In regard to an actual appraisal, what we're doing is we're going and giving a fair market value as an essential unbiased opinion of what we feel that the property is worth, right? So there's a lot of research that goes into it. And, sometimes a file can be a cookie cutter, smooth transition, in and out. And other times there's no comparables in this area, or you're in a rural area where there's, nothing sold in the last 90 days, right? So, the research aspect in appraising is so important. It really defines the quality of your work, right? The better researcher you are, the better your report's going to be. Like a report, can take, like I said, it can take 2 hours to go from start to finish, or sometimes it's taking 5, right? It really depends.
Yeah.
And usually I'm on the road, I'm inspecting properties, I'm taking measurements, right? I'd say I wrap up my day usually around 7-8 p.m. and they are long days, but again, it becomes, how much do you want to work? How much money do you want to make? How much do you want to grind? And you have to, everyone's situation is different.
So for our listeners, or any young athletes, college athletes that are out there just thinking about what you're saying and possibly interested in that type of career, what are some of the steps that they should start to think about now, or they should take, and how, I don't want to say easy, but how do they get into appraising?
It's a good question, Rob, because it's a kind of a niche job. Like, it's not as discovered as a lot of people think. Even to this day, I'll say, hey, I'm a real estate appraiser, right? And people say, yeah, you'd be great at real estate, and I go, it's not selling or buying homes. It's a completely different field. And a lot of people kind of mix those up. So, the courses, the first course is a very introductory course, and anyone, as long as you have a university degree, you can register. It's a 4-month course. And as of that moment, you're considered a certified appraiser. Okay.
So any university degree?
Any university degree, at least in Canada. I'm not sure about the States, right? Yep. So as long as you have a university degree, you take this one course, which is your introductory level to appraising. Okay. After that, there's something called your CRA designation. That's like your master's in appraising. So that's like the 8 to 10 courses that I told you that you have to take afterwards, is progressing as an appraiser, and you have a 10-year window to complete it. Okay. So my recommendation, Rod, would be take the first course, find a job and say, listen, I'm a candidate appraiser. I'm just looking to get some experience in this, right? There are a lot of firms that will hire, and get experience to it and see if it's something that you like, right? And, see if the job demands are okay for you. And then if it's something that you want to decide to pursue, then you start chipping away at all your courses. If it's not, this job's not for me. You've only wasted a couple months of your life doing a course, which, I think is a fair price to pay to figure out what career you want to do.
Interesting. So what is, and not just speaking to you, but just in general, the industry, like, what's the earning potential of somebody who is, just took their course, starting to get into appraising?
Yeah.
What would that be for them?
So it's like any job, Rod, where if you're starting out and you're not experienced, you're only going to get the jobs that don't require
the small
experience, right? Condominiums that are pretty cookie cutter, where there's a ton of data, in the building. It's going to be pretty easy to come and formulate a value because I have 3 sales that sold within the last 90 days, right? Now, what if you're dealing with a $3.5 million luxury property home, custom built in an area where, you have a huge lot size? We go by, square feet and feet. I'm not sure what you guys use in the States. Same. Okay. So, your earning potential now on that job, like our minimum job is $500 plus HST. Your minimum on those are like $1,250, $1,350, right? So depending on the quality of you as an appraiser, you're going to start getting those, jobs. I'd say that a fair range to when you're first starting out, expect to make regular money, 50 to 70, like any entry job. It's very easy to make that jump to 6 figures. Every appraiser, without oversharing with our company, every appraiser that works at Sharp Appraisal is making 6 figures or at least close to it. And, the next step to that is, once you get that designation, the CRA designation, right? So I've done all of those 10 years of schooling. Now your split for your appraisal becomes a lot more because you're a more qualified appraiser. So instead of 50% appraiser, you're making 70% or 65 or 75.
Right.
And you're doing that on most likely complex jobs, right?
Mhm.
So that's where you start seeing some, 200,000, 250, right? And the other advantage to that is that once you have your CRA, I can now co-sign for 8 people underneath me. So
okay.
now you're getting a split of what they're doing just for
Yep.
Exactly, right? So, it's like the basketball world. You start small, you got to pay your licks like any other profession.
Mm-hmm.
Put your time in, man, and you can make a good career out of it for sure.
So appreciate all this information and your time, brother. This has been amazing. I'm going to start to bring it on home, but you again walk the journey out just like most athletes. You've gotten the high school level, college, blessed to be in the professional level, and now appraising. What has like basketball or sports just in general like taught you about yourself when you're now in this career where you're trying to figure it out? You're doing really well, but I always love to tie back life lessons into sports. So when you thought about your transition, what did basketball do for you?
Everything. Work ethic, right? There's no way I can get up at 5 a.m. in the morning every single day, Monday to Friday, and do what I do, accomplish what I do in a day without years of dedication to my body, physical health, all these things, right? Just learning how to, push myself in that aspect has made me early, I don't want to say successful, but on my way, let's say, to, the career that I want. I would say leadership. Always was a leader on every team, right? That allows me to be more vocal in the business plays. That allows me to be easier to fit in on a team. But the biggest thing I learned, and I kind of touched upon it, man, and I really believe that business is spiritual. It's about a connection that you have and pain points that you're trying to get in. And, for me to play on a team with people, find a way to fit in on that team and find a way to solve a problem. Hey, for me, it was shooting. I knew that I was going to get paid to shoot the ball. I was always a top 10 shooter in the league, right? So can I take that mindset or methodology and attack it in the business world, right? Okay, this is a specific problem for mortgage agents, right? This is how I'm going to add value to them. This is how I'm going to get their business. So it's a little different, and I hope you can kind of see the correlation of what I'm trying to make from it. But at the end of the day, it's like all these things that I've learned from basketball, man, have just translated into into the workforce. Like competitive spirit as well is another one. And that's why a lot of employers, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, love hiring athletes because, like I said, listen, real estate agents, you go door knocking. A lot of athletes don't have issues doing that because it's like, hey, I've done way worse. I've done 3 a days overseas. I've done, 2 a days at 6 a.m. in the morning. Like, it's not that hard. You just have to put your effort in and work hard, man. And you'll get what's coming to you.
Absolutely, brother. We're gonna finish out with some quick hitter questions, and then we'll call it a night. But first question is, what was the best country that you've ever visited?
Best Italy. Not for me, non-negotiable.
Gotcha. Favorite basketball player?
Klay Thompson.
Okay. Favorite sports movie?
Coach Carter or Remember the Titans?
Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
Favorite. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Do you have a hidden talent?
No.
Hidden talent?
No, don't think so.
Okay. And then who's on your Mount Rushmore of basketball?
Michael Jordan. For me, Tim Duncan. I think he's like an underrated GOAT in my opinion. Whatever, I'm going to put him there. LeBron James and Kobe Bryant.
I like that. That's a good list. And then last question: who was your favorite teammate?
Oh, bro, you were definitely up there, Rod.
I'll be up there. I got to be up there
for sure, man.
Who else?
Man, honestly, that like professionally, I'll say like G and bro, like I swear to God, the chemistry we had, my boy Matt Marsh, Joe Rock, I got so many, right? I can't give you one, man.
Hard question.
I got so many, bro. Back in university, I can't answer that.
That was on purpose. I knew you were gonna have a lot. But again, Adam, I want to say thank you for your time, brother. This has been amazing. We'll make sure that your information is shared if any athletes want to connect with you and learn more about your career. But it's been a pleasure to be your teammate, a pleasure to be your brother. And again, I appreciate you taking the time out.
Bro, this was a lot of fun, man. And anyone that wants to ask any questions, feel free to reach out at any time.
Cool. You've now been listening to the Transition Game podcast brought to you by Athletes Boardroom. Peace.